I am so nervous. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great. So I discovered when I was going to do this that I'm really bad about talking about myself. I really enjoy talking about something I'm passionate about. I could talk about my work. I can advocate for someone else's art. But I have a really hard time getting personal and talking about me. But I felt like with a theme like home, you can't really avoid talking about yourself a little bit. So here I am in front of you discussing some of my personal life. I actually even talked to a few different people about what this would look like, and Matt Plett, who was a previous speaker, is here today. Thank you for coming, Matt. And he is an amazing artist and working on a project right now at Jefferson Point. You should go check it out. Shameless plug for him. But he let me know that no matter how bad I do, I'll still get pity laughs because everyone here is really rooting for you to succeed. So the bar is low. And hopefully I get more than that, but we'll see what happens. So Fort Wayne is not the place I expected to live. I did grow up here, and I'm actually here today because my healthcare is here and my support system is here. So I am deeply private about my personal life, and I stressed a lot about what I was comfortable sharing with this group. So obviously in my bio, I talk a little bit about my youth and being unwell while I was younger. So I did miss a couple years of high school and a couple of years of college to cancer. And many people probably don't know that about me unless they went to high school with me. So that is just a little piece of my background, but not what I'm focusing on today. Because when I think of home, I actually think about that support system first. I think of my parents. I'm very privileged to share that I have two amazing parents, Scott and Andy Hall, and they have shown me and my four siblings more support, patience, and love than any of us deserve. We're all kind of awful to them sometimes, but I wouldn't be where I am without my mom and my dad. Something that really resonates with me is the toolkit of things that my parents sent me out into the world with. So my first home, they really gave me some really solid foundation as to how I would approach life and how I would deal with things that happen in my life. So the sign in my family kitchen was "Get a Grip," and it was one of those hand-painted signs with that cat hanging off of it, made out of wood. I don't know. Very, very much so something that my mom probably picked up at Hobby Lobby, which is like the anti-artist thing to have in the house for me. But anyways, I always think of that sign because really it felt like at times my mom invented the concept of picking yourself up and getting over it and moving on no matter how awful something is. She's a farm girl from southern Indiana. She's very tough and determined and absolutely filled with a well of strength, and I do not know where she gets it from. So for the rest of my life, no matter how bad something gets, I think of that stupid sign and my mom saying, basically, get over it, put things into perspective, get up, brush yourself off, and keep trying. Here's our lucky trucks. So essentially, really, it's your behavior that determines the outcome of your life, and that was something that I learned from my mom. So my father is a much quieter person. He's a great example of self-restraint, something that I struggle with at times. He thinks before he speaks, also something I struggle with at times, but he was always a great example of both of those things for me. He's a logical problem solver, and he taught me the great art of cogitation, walking around and really thinking about a problem, looking at it from all sides, and assessing how you might be able to accomplish a goal. He also taught me follow through and how to finish a task. So that first home, my parents and all that loud, bustling group of siblings of mine, they taught me how to approach all things with an unnatural perseverance. They told me to keep in perspective what matters, finish what I start, and logically approach all obstacles because everything is surmountable with the appropriate amount of hard work, critical thinking, and perseverance. So that is my first home's toolkit. Out into the world I went. So I recently took a trip with a dear friend of mine to Yellowstone National Park and Glacier National Park. My friend is from Russia. I actually studied in Russia, and we met in Russian class. She grew up listening to the Russian language, but had never learned how to write it, so that was something that we had in common. I also couldn't write the Russian language very well, but I didn't speak it at all, and still to this point, I'm not that great at it. But we're still very close friends, and after spending 7 days driving 2,000 miles together, we're still talking. So again, like, that's a solid friendship. If you can do that, you can survive. So I'm talking about leaving home for a reason. So that trip is something that allows me to recharge and get inspired. And in general, I think that that's another key component of how I make Fort Wayne my home, is that I leave, and I leave with some frequency. I drove 1,000 miles away to hike, 1,000 miles back, so that last stretch is really rough if you've ever driven across the country in Nebraska. No. I also left 9,000 miles away to study in Russia, so the reason I left initially when I was younger was because I was so obsessed with this idea that there was something so much greater out there and so much more to see, and the cornfields of Indiana couldn't keep me, and I was going to get away. And so when I left and studied abroad, I realized that I did miss home, and I miss elements of this place, and it helped me gain an appreciation for Fort Wayne, and it also helped me to basically see how things are done other places and start to garner pieces of things that are being done around the world that I thought might be something I wanted to see in my home. So it is that travel and leaving home that has given me the inspiration and the appreciation for Fort Wayne that I needed to create some of my best artwork, and much of my passion and what I do in the city of Fort Wayne is derived from my experiences in other places. So I strongly encourage everyone to take a leap, get out of your comfort zone, and leave home every now and again. So when I found myself trying to make Fort Wayne my home, even though it wasn't my original plan, I did realize we have work to do. I'm going to be honest. There are characteristics about this place that I don't love, and there are things that it lacks that I would love to see here. I think that the streets of Prague have ruined me forever. If we could just do cobblestone instead of concrete, that would make me so happy, but I realize that that's not really feasible, so dream big though, right? So I'm a creative, and I could envision elements of Fort Wayne that could be different and could be better, and things felt feasible because I knew from my parents that if you really put your nose down and work hard, things are possible. So if I wanted this place to change that was now my home, I knew that I needed to act, get involved, and invest in my community. So sitting by the sidelines and talking about it or complaining about it were not an option. It really does take hard work and making a choice to sacrifice. So I ended up in a volunteer role that has changed my life. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So Bill Brown, the former president of the Fort Wayne Downtown Improvement District, approached me to talk about public art 6 years ago. And that was the very first step that I took in carving out this new version of Fort Wayne, the city I call home. So I tell people jokingly that I used to be an artist because today I spend more time consulting than I actually do creating my own work, which is frightening to say out loud. I actually wish that I would go back, and balance is something I'm working on, just another personal goal. But what I found is that back when I was a full-time artist, I found in Fort Wayne a place that was a community that embraced you and made it possible, and people were starting to buy local art, and I have regulars that I've had for the last 8 to 10 years who have bought my artwork, and that is not something you find everywhere. So it is a place where I was able to carve out my first career, and that was my arts career. So back then, When I was doing that as my only job, sculptor Alex Mendez and I did a guitar piece in collaboration for an art show up at Jennifer Ford Gallery in 2015. So when the show was over, I had a 200-pound, 16-foot long metal guitar with no home, speaking of the theme, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I toted it with me to the City Exchange shops downtown in Fort Wayne, and I was trying on that whole brick and mortar gallery concept for size. Turns out that's not for me, but it was something I was doing for about 4 months. And in that 4-month time, I stuck this giant guitar up on the wall inside the City Exchange, and Bill Brown approached me and asked me about it. His first question was actually, would it do okay out in the elements in the Indiana weather with snow and rain? And I was like, sure. But I had no idea. Honestly, it's steel. I didn't know. So I had to do some research and figure out, was it something that I could make acceptable for the outside? And the answer is yes. It will patina over time, but that is all part of the art. So that first conversation led to a larger discussion around what public art could look like in the city of Fort Wayne. We were really lucky to have just seen this really awesome piece behind us by Nosego get installed, thanks to Joseph Zimmerman and the property owner here at Pint and Slice. So there was a spark right there, the idea that street art that doesn't have anything to do with our city was possible, and people were going to embrace it, and it was something that was maybe going to be accepted in what was maybe a place that people thought was too conservative for something like that. So out of that discussion really came, how does this work? How do you do something like this? How do I put a giant guitar on the side of a building? And I know that at the time, I didn't tell Bill Brown that I was obsessed with street art and that I'd traveled all over the world looking for it and that graffiti is amazing and I wanted my town to be covered in it, because that would have scared him. But I did spend the next couple of months thinking, I am going to get more street art in downtown Fort Wayne. And then I spent the next 4 years of my life volunteering to make that goal happen. Another really important and sad thing happened to make this Art This Way program a reality. Christy Landrigan was a former DIT employee, and she unfortunately passed away in an accident, and some funds were donated to the Downtown Improvement District in her memory in the hopes that they might be leveraged in a way to celebrate Christy's life. So it was with those funds that that guitar sculpture ended up getting stuck in the alleyways of downtown Fort Wayne, and that initial conversation grew into something bigger. So it is those sparks at times that bring us to these places. So Christy Landrigan was a spark in the story of Art This Way. Bill Brown was a spark too. And every artist, property owner, and donor, and individual who's ever contributed time to the program has been part of a collaborative effort to make this happen. So while I will say that I get to do some of the nitty-gritty in the background and try to make Art This Way a reality, it really is only possible because of people sitting here today, because of people listening, and because of every person who's ever participated in the program. So Art This Way has tons of moving parts. Sometimes I will spend more time on Art This Way than I do on anything else. I spent many hours building out the project and making sure that the appropriate systems were in place for a viable and functioning program. I won't bore you with all the legalese. We have to put contracts in place. There's a whole system to deal with so many different types of people. I get to spend a lot of time interfacing, educating, and advocating for public art, also giving tours. So if you ever see me wandering around with a whole bunch of people trailing behind me, that's probably what I'm doing. So just consistently always trying to make sure that I'm putting out there the opportunity for people to learn more, get invested, and get involved. I also spend a lot of time replying to questions, many of which are Googleable. I have a friend here, Stephen Bailey, who does so much social media work, and I think that it's funny because we joke that it seems like there's the answers are just there, but people feel inclined to ask, like there's this like monster of 100 people behind every social media page that can answer all your questions and queries right away. But it's typically just me in my kitchen making dinner, responding to your request. So all that being said, I love that this program is working, and all the times I've had to spend chasing down a property owner to get them, downtown action. All the times I've had to spend like chasing down a property owner to get that last signature that I need, or hounding an artist to please just send me their bio, like anything. All of it's worth it in the end, because it is just like any other job, but it's a job that I'm really passionate about, and it's a job that is meaningful, and it's a job that's produced something that's tangible and visible, and hopefully something that everyone can appreciate. So each year, Art This Way has installed more projects than the last. We've come a long way from that first group of big murals that we did. Again, Matt Plett, he was responsible for one of the Breathe ones in the alley around the corner here. So in 2020, we installed 10 projects, and we did over 60 temporary public art projects. And in 2021, we are scheduled to install almost 20 large permanent projects. So all told, it is truly a delight to see what it has become. It's been magical, and I think the other thing that's grown from it is that we've gotten over that idea that we're too conservative, or that this isn't something we're ready for. And there's this tangible representation of this amazing creative community here in downtown. And I hope that it's contagious, and I hope that it's a catalyst for more. And I think the Make It Your Own Mural Fest is a good example of that. Someone who worked with me very closely on Art This Way, Rachel Driscoll, she is someone who is really pivotal in having those initial conversations with the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership and bringing that project to our region. So again, Sparks. That's you, Rachel. So all told, I'm really proud to be here today to talk about street art, and the fact that my passion has been something that I've been able to invest in and bring to this community. Building out this program, the Art This Way program, drew me into a career that I would have never envisioned for myself. As you heard from my bio, this was not my trajectory at all. But now both careers, artist and consultant, were founded and fostered here in Fort Wayne. This city, my hometown, provided me a community where I could build an unconventional career, 2 of them. And the creative in me will always see the latent potential and that we can do more. But the consultant in me is inspired to keep working towards that better version of my home, Fort Wayne. So that's what I have to share today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was awesome. Guys, one more round of applause for Alex Hall. All right, it is time for our Q&A. So, does anybody right off the bat have any questions for Alex? Also on our social media, are any questions coming through? Let me know. Oh, right here, Rachel.
Yeah, I can repeat it.
If you just say it, we can repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the coolest things I think about Art This Way is the apprenticeship.
Yeah, so her question was, one of the cool things about Art This Way is the apprenticeship component of the program, and she wants to learn a little bit more about that component.
So the great thing about building something from scratch is that it's still kind of in beta mode. I feel like we haven't formalized the apprentice program the way we should, but when people reach out directly to the Art This Way page and say, I want to participate in a project or learn more so that I can build my resume, we try to make an effort to connect them with an artist when they're in town and see if it's something that will work out and allow them an opportunity to garner that experience. So it is just a reach out at this point, but hopefully we will be able to formalize it, and that's just more so a capacity thing, but definitely it's on the radar, and we have had some success stories with this more informal mechanism so far.
Awesome. So yeah, if you guys are interested in painting murals, reach out to Art This Way. Any other questions? Yes, right here.
You hinted earlier in your discussion about being able to travel and take things that you learned from other cities back to Fort Wayne, and that maybe we had a little bit more growth to do. And I didn't know if you had just one example of where you'd like to see the trajectory of Fort Wayne in regards to art in other cities.
That's a very good
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
All right, for everyone listening here, the question was, Alex has traveled a lot and she's seen a lot of growth in other communities. She sees the need for more growth in Fort Wayne. So what is one example or a couple examples of that growth that is needed?
So I think integrating art into all public realm is something that's possible, and I've seen it happen everywhere. So things that I would love to see are a really solid bike lane infrastructure in downtown Fort Wayne. That's like really high on my list, and I would love to see it done in a way that integrates the streetscape in a more aesthetically pleasing way than just slapping down some paint. There are really great examples of even using cars, parked cars, as buffers to protect cyclists so that the lane is closer to the sidewalk. Little things like that. I know that traffic control is going to hate me after this, but these are things that I think about and that I would love to see manifested here, because I just know that we would be a better city for it.
Very cool. More questions. We have time, guys. Stephen Bailey.
What do you have to say about maybe the connection between economic development or larger cities that you go to if you are interested in the art scene and you see the good things happening in a city that maybe doesn't happen here? Like, what are your thoughts on why art is important to the city, but without it, a city is not going to
Yeah. So, Stephen, make sure I'm wording this correctly, but the question is essentially, what are your thoughts when you see how art is spurring growth in economic development in another community, and how is art doing that? In what ways, do you think that idea can be transferred here?
And do you ever make the connection that if there is no art, then things don't happen?
Oh, and do you ever make the connection that if art is not happening in a community, that things don't happen?
Yes. No, I think that when you see an arts and culture scene, when you step into a place you've never been and you recognize there's something happening here, you just know that there's a group of creatives who are investing their time in making that happen, but also you know that the city is going in the right direction, that community is on the rise, it's going in the right place. I was just in my trip across country. I was in a place called, I think, Sheridan, like the hotel, Sheridan, Wyoming, which, yeah, that was a pit stop I wasn't expecting to make. But they have a pretty decent bronze sculpture public art scene. So totally unexpected, a town of like 30,000 people or something, don't quote me on that, but not that many people. But the moment I got into the town, I was like, oh, there's art here. And you recognize that there were small businesses along the stretch, and there were people in the downtown, and there was a plant system. So like there were planters all blooming, and benches were there, and trash cans were there. It was like somebody's doing something here. And that feels really different from a community where you step in and it's basically the gas station and terrible broken down infrastructure, and no one's investing in it. So I think part of it is that you're seeing that creative investment, and that is just a really good indication of a place that cares and a place that is investing in itself and going places. I know that some of my favorite street art communities like London and Berlin, I mean, they're major cities. I mean, those are places where this is happening organically, but where you see a city making a point of spending their funds and spending their time on public art, I think that's where, especially in the United States, you're seeing those are the people that are picking themselves back up and moving forward and getting on with it and trying to make it a better place to live and work.
More questions? Yes, Matt.
Is there anything, you're talking a little bit of, you really talked to me about your own personal
anything you still want to do or that you haven't done that you feel willing to speak out loud?
All right, so the question is, tell us a little bit more about your own personal creative stuff and sort of what's next for you and what you still want to live out in your own creative journey.
Okay, thank you for that question. So I don't know if you've garnered this yet, but I'm a little bit of an A-type personality in some ways. I like checking things off lists and I like organizing things, but that analytical part of my brain doesn't always play nice with the creative part of my brain. So the more I get into doing the consulting work, the less I'm able to shut off that part of my brain and just let loose and be creative. So step one in doing what I want to do more of is probably being better at isolating those days where I'm not going to answer emails and isolating those stretches of time where I'm giving myself the freedom to be creative without the stress of all the other things that I'm juggling. But as far as personal goals, I would absolutely love to do a several-story high exterior public art mural piece. And I think it would probably be a ridiculously whimsical animal wearing a very outwardly crazy, colorful outfit or something, pretty indicative of my usual work. So if I could, hopefully someday I will, that would be something I'd really like to achieve sometime in the next couple of years.
I actually sort of have a question kind of related to that. Speaking of your work with animals and kind of humanizing them in different ways, what inspired that style of art, and do you see animals as you look around downtown and around the city? So tell us just more about that style.
Yeah, so I guess that creating a caricature of people in a way is sort of the genesis of how I started painting. So everything that I do, all of the animals I create, with the exception of the many, many dog portraits that I do, they're all inspired by people. So it really is something where it's not a satire or making fun of anyone. It's just sometimes someone's wearing a really great hat, or they are holding themselves a certain way, and then I can envision them as a duck. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's not like I see all of you in the crowd and I'm like, and here's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and there's that's not how it works. I know, but I do interpret what I see and tend to find it easiest to make it into an anthropomorphic character, typically an animal. And I don't know, my love of costumes is something totally out of this world. I don't know how to explain it, but the more ridiculous a hat is, the happier I am.
That's fun. I feel like hats are underrated in the fashion world.
I should have worn one.
Yeah. Hey, where's the hats? None of us have hats. Evan's got one. Chris got one. All right. Mike, yes. How do you encourage and develop sparkiness? So speaking of collaboration and sparks.
So sparks are hard to make happen, and sometimes you don't know that they are a spark until you look back at it, right? But I will say this, follow through is pretty important, and just having an idea doesn't mean anything until you act on it and you make a plan to achieve it. So I would say that all the sparks wouldn't be sparks if not for the fact that perseverance and dedication and action and completing the tasks made them that, if that makes any sense. In a very philosophical, circular, roundabout way, they all work together, and one cannot happen without the execution and the completion and the follow-through.
Awesome. I saw one hand here, and then we'll go over there.
You kind of just touched a little bit on it, but you managed to accomplish quite a bit in a relatively short amount of time, but I'm sure that there were moments of adversity and roadblocks. So what was your process for kind of working through those moments and pushing ahead?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was curious about that myself. So the question is, in moments of adversity and roadblocks, what are some of Alex's tactics for pushing forward and making cool stuff happen?
So that really tacky kitchen sign, get a grip. No. I would say that I have a great support system, and I tend to, if I'm really hitting something hard and I can't figure out how to get over it, I do have a counsel in my dad, which sounds crazy, but he has probably heard every terrible, awful thing that could possibly have happened in this journey to make our city allow me to graffiti the walls. And at the end of the day, though, I like to put it into perspective, and I like to think that maybe this was a no for now, and I'll come back to it and I'll work through it. And there's just, again, that idea of making sure that where I can control it, I stay in control, and where I can't, I return to it and basically hound them until they say yes to me.
A realistic answer. All right, over here.
So, like, just if you could percentage-wise it, how much percent of your life do you spend actually doing the things that you want, rather than the things that you need to do in order to achieve the things you want?
That's a good question, too. All right, so the question is, if you could percentagize it, how much time do you spend doing what you want versus the things you kind of have to do in order to do what you want?
So that's a great question, but it's hard because ultimately, even the things I don't want to do take me to where I want to be. So every time I have to reply to the 1,000th question that was Googleable, or every time I have to hound an artist to finally send me every bullet pointed item I've asked them for and not just the first two that they felt like answering, those are moments that ultimately lead to the end goal. And so it's hard for me to say that I don't want to do them. They're part of it. But as far as consulting goes, in the summers anymore, I'm probably spending about 80% of my time doing this consulting work versus creating on my own. So hopefully by winter time, when mural season ends and it's cold, I'll get to kind of go back to a little bit more creative time. But in general, 80% of my time doing consultant work, and how much of it I love, I won't give it a number.
Any other questions? Yes.
So, what has good support looked like for you, and what can you support
Oh.
not being your
Oh,
own?
my goodness.
So what has good support looked like to Alex, and what can we do to keep supporting her work here?
Oh my word. That's hard. So sometimes I think good support is just showing up to an event. So if you know that there's like an Art This Way dedication, sometimes having a body there is nice because you plan the whole thing, and then if it's not well attended, it feels like a flop. I would say that kind of thing, following these artists, investing in these artists' work after they've done work downtown is another way that you're actually supporting me and Art This Way indirectly. And then also, I know that we have a couple of key events where we look for volunteers, so you could literally donate some hours in support. And another thing, and I know I'm looking at Mandy now, sometimes I'm bad at responding to emails. I think just in general, I am human, and so I think understanding every now and again that I might be overwhelmed or I might have too much on my plate. I'm not purposely ignoring anyone. So sometimes your support means giving me a little bit of grace every now and again.
I saw one more hand go up, maybe. Questions answered? Yes, Julia.
As much as you like unconventional art, every now and then you're not on like the 77 steps of Abraham. Anything skies the limit right now.
Okay, so the question is, we see a lot of cool unconventional art in downtown Fort Wayne, like 77 steps. If she could get any art to be in downtown Fort Wayne right now, what would that be?
So my absolute favorite artist duo in my street art world is Harakoot. And they are German, and they do extremely large scale, haunting fairy tale-esque pieces. And I would love to cover a giant building in Fort Wayne, Indiana with a Harakoot piece. I don't know if we could recruit them, and I don't know what they would do, because I think that they're truly creatives, and they're kind of like the rock stars of the art world in a lot of ways, in the street art world. So I wouldn't feel comfortable asking them to tailor their design at all. So if I could, Julia, I would just say, here's a wall, go for it, and then that would make me happy. Yes, of course. Of course, then you can interview me about it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Other questions? I have one more quick one too. Did you have one here? How do you spell Harakoot?
Yeah, H-E-R-A-K-U-T. So Hera is the woman's name, and Koot is his name, and they paint together.
Cool. My question is, when you're feeling down, when you kind of find yourself in this place, I think a lot of our Creative Mornings attendees might find themselves where they moved back to Fort Wayne, maybe they moved here or they grew up here, and they're just kind of feeling like maybe they're alone a little bit in their creative process, or maybe people don't believe in their ideas. What keeps you inspired and keep wanting to make a difference and keep investing here?
So I do have down days, that is true. Days when I am down on this place, and days when I am not as passionate as I should be, and I will admit it. But I would say travel is something that helps me to get back into perspective. I also have had some life experiences that have taught me that things can always get a lot worse, so this isn't that bad. And I think that at the end of the day, I don't know, it feels like it's a passion project, and it feels like it feels really special to be able to say that in this city, with enough effort and enough perseverance, you can create something that really means something to you and really changes this place. And if that is something, and you are creative, if that's something you want to do, this is a place that makes it possible. And I think that knowing that is something that helps me to get over the bad days, get over the times when I don't hear back from someone, and or I can't even get an interview or talk to somebody about a project. That helps me stay balanced, and then I also sometimes go to really bad cities when I travel and realize, like, yeah, Fort Wayne's got it going on. Yeah. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Alex. Another round of applause for Alex.